everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you as always for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader, and today folks we are doing a pick a card reading focused on your connection. So we want to delve a little bit into your relationship. This can be a love relationship, and I feel I'm gonna resonate with this area mostly, but it doesn't mean that the reading can't work for you for other kinds of connections. The idea is to keep it more or less open-ended, getting a sense of what's going on, what's happening, where you're heading with this, and of course a healthy dose of advice as we always get through the Lenormand deck. So I'm going to do 3 extended readings. I'm looking at a mini tableau of sorts. And so I'm going to do 3 of them. So I have 3 stones here for you to choose one, or sometimes people choose more. We have the Lapis stone. I feel it's a very strong stone. We have the Opalite, which is a bit softer. And we have the Brandberg, which I feel is really solid in character. As always, the timestamps are in the description box, and if you need to pause the video, by all means do so you can resonate into your reading, into the stone you want to pick for this reading, and also to focus on this relationship that you want to do this reading for. And I'll see you in your video. Okay, Lapis group, let's start with your stone and the deck. It is always shuffled between readings, and so I'm just gonna shuffle it a little bit and tuning into this connection of yours that we are delving into for this reading. And then I'm just going to deal out the cards into a mini tableau of 9s. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, Lapis group, here we are with your mini tableau of 9s. The ring and scythe are figuring in your tableau, and I really feel this is probably the strongest and most obvious combination that is coming through your reading. We also have the woman in the middle. We have a few tricky cards. So Lapis, I feel that this is going to be a challenging phase, possibly one that entails a separation of sorts. However, it is really worth noting that on these 2 columns, I'm picking up a sense of freedom, liberation, mainly because of the stork. And this is a portrait around the stork. And we will see that it sort of comes a little bit after the challenges, especially in the central row. Now, I'd like to start with a few overview cards and groups of cards just to contextualize the tableau. The ones I really like to look at are the corner cards. We have the anchor and the book. This is quite interesting. I think that the combination can mean a few things, but I think that it has to do mainly with bearing with some mysteries. I think not everything is clear or apparent for you at this stage, and so it might be worth your while to hang in there until some facts come through. I also think with the anchor and book, you might like to double check the information, make sure you are clear about what's going on, and also don't assume that you understand everything, because there could be some details or some information that you are not that is not in your hands right now, and that could change the picture a little bit. So just be patient with the details to come through. Bear yourself through a bit of mystery until you have more clarity. And also, if you're about to make a decision, then hang on until you're convinced and you've got all the facts, like we said. The clover and heart are beautiful for a relationship, and it's really interesting to see them at the corners of your tableau here. So despite any challenges we're going to see in the tableau, like there are a few things going on here in the middle, it definitely looks like it's for the better. Because of the ring and scythe here, it can mean that you're in for a new relationship, and we're certainly going to see a message of something new in the bottom row and also in the central column. And the central column is pretty important in the context of the tableau of 9s. So this is a very beautiful message for love and feelings and happiness in a broad sense. When we look at the first 3 cards of your tableau, the bird here does bring up the idea of a conversation, and with the anchor and fish, the fish can take on a number of meanings. It's usually associated with money, but in this context, I think it's really more about having a sense of confidence and a sense of initiatives. And the bird can point to this idea of conversation. Now, what's interesting to me is that the bird is associated with being vocal, with asking questions, negotiating, basically opening up your mouth. And it comes in contrast with the anchor and book that we saw as the first pair of corner cards. So I feel that maybe you need to do some research, you need to do some asking around, double check the facts again before you come to any conclusion. So a conversation and a sense of expression is going to be important for you over the next phase. And like I said, the central card of your tableau is the woman. So you could be the woman, or the other person can be the woman. And as you know, the gender thing is flexible with the significator. So it really depends who you've tuned into for this reading. But again, she can represent you as well. So the idea of having a person card in the center here really aligns with what we're asking about. It really aligns with the theme of the reading, which is really, really good. Okay, so with this said, with this sort of overview, let's start weaving the details out of this tableau, starting with the big rows, with the top row. So we've got the anchorfish bird, and we've looked at these as part of the first three cards, and then we have the house, ring, tree, and heart. So this is really, really positive for a relationship in general. The house in the middle here can point to family, intimate relationships, closer friends. And of course, the ring, tree, and heart is really, really positive for the evolution of a relationship. And the thing about the ring is that it is usually a card of love and romance in the context of relationships, but it also points to strong bonds. Now, I do not want to draw a conclusion immediately, because as we see here, the ring T-cross is a very powerful column that has a scythe. The ring, scythe, and bear is a major separation. This is mainly a breakup, and it seems that it comes at a time when it's the right time for it. I'm picking this up from the second row here. We'll get to this in a bit. But in contrast with the top row, it seems that you have given this enough time and you are taking your time with the decision. It's certainly good advice to do this. You don't need to rock the boat prematurely. You don't need to take actions when it doesn't feel right. But I'm also getting a sense that it might be the right thing to do for both parties. And it's possible that the relationship is maintained moving forward after some key changes that happen through this column here. Now, the second row is a challenging row because of the snake and mouse in here. The snake is also a portrait. It has a portrait around it. And it does start with the key, though, which is an interesting sign. So we have the key, snake, mouse, and then woman, and then the scythe, stork, and lily. So it's pretty clear to me that there is very good reason why you should change up this relationship and likely move away from it completely. The scythe is very much a card of separation, especially with cards like the ring. With the stork, it points to freedom, this idea of release and relief. Backing up, we have the key, which points to solutions, and it also gives us the green light, the idea that it's the right thing to do. And when we see the snake, mouse, and woman, and then the scythe, then we're getting a clear indication that it is the right thing to do, to move away, to release yourself from this relationship. The stork and lily, especially following the scythe, points to a new lease of life, the idea that a new chapter is now possible. I think it's likely that some things in your life have been put on hold, probably because of your involvement in this relationship. And again, it doesn't have to be a love relationship. It can be any other connection that you are focusing on for this reading. And at this stage, you need to change things up because you need to make room for the things that you want to do in life. You could be moving, changing. You need to renovate, change up your life. shake up the energies in your circumstance, in your surroundings, in your system, inside yourself. And this is really what's needed for you now. So it's probably going to take a more radical kind of separation from this person. I am focusing on a single person, but I can also allow for a group of people. Maybe you are thinking of a certain situation that involves a few people and you need to release yourself from this environment, and that can apply too. So very clear line in this second row here, very clearly telling us that it's a good thing to let go because it will feel relieving for you to move on into a new life chapter. Very straightforward. Now the bottom row is a lovely set of cards here. The fox is a bit tricky, but let's back up. We have the clover, one of the luckiest cards of the deck, and then we have the rider, the mountain, and then the child, bear, fox, and book. Interesting. When I look at these three cards here, I am looking at a wonderful new beginning, taking initiative into exploring something new. The mountain and child is one of those special combinations in my dictionary that I actually inherit from Titania. And it means that you are moving into a life chapter whose importance you cannot yet see. And this could be the mystery that we saw with the anchor and book as your corner cards. So this can be really, really exciting. And we see here that you want to explore options. You want to expand your horizons. Maybe you're searching for something in your life and it's really time to align with that. And it sounds like this relationship has been in the way. The bear, following these three cards, points to, again, the sense of importance, something important happening for you. And the fox and book can be a bit tricky, suggesting that you don't know everything that's ahead for you, that you could be going after a bit of a leap of faith here. And it's also good advice for you to check as much details as you can, try to research what's ahead as much as possible, and maybe even consult someone who might know a few things. The bear is a card of leadership. It can point to someone in authority. Perhaps you're stepping up to a higher position of sorts, especially on the job, because the fox can be a card of the job. And the book here can point to knowledge. So maybe you're upskilling and learning something and getting ready to grow, whether it's on the job or in another area of your life. So you're after ambitions. Okay, your ambitions are coming into the picture and you want to pursue them, and it's very likely that the relationship you're focusing on for this reading could be a little bit in the way. So it's either you change it up or you release it completely. These are possible depending on the specifics of your connection. Another thing that comes through the fox is a word of caution. The fox is normally associated with someone or something deceptive. And when I see it next to the book, it's possible that someone could be communicating some misinformation to you. And also, it gives you the idea that you want to not take things at face value. Maybe there are some things happening behind the scenes. There's more to the story than what you're reading. And so it's important to be able to read between the lines. And with the bear here, it can be somewhat tricky. But again, I feel that you're on top of all of this. And notice that we have the clover at the outset. So it puts you in a strong position and gives you quite a bit of luck dealing with what's ahead, dealing with the unknowns that are ahead for you. So let's now move to the columns. The first one is the anchor, key, and clover. This is a lovely column. It really gives you a lot of confidence and a lot of self-awareness, and gives you a lot of faith in yourself to deal with what is coming. The cards here also advise you to trust your instinct, to trust your knowledge, and to appreciate that you know how to deal with this and you know what you need to do. It also confirms that what you're thinking about this relationship is the right thing. So keep trusting yourself and keep pulling out the resources from within you. You've got everything it takes to move forward and to make the changes that are needed for you to experience the freedom and the bigger adventures that are ahead for you. The fish, snake, and rider is a bit tricky here, mainly because of the snake. The snake is often challenging when it comes to relationships. it's associated with a third party. So this makes me wonder if the woman in the center of your tableau of nines isn't actually referring to a third party that could be interfering in your relationship. Now, if that's the case, the reading takes on a slightly different feel. It can mean that she is out of the picture because of the second row, and there you have that freedom again. So this can be a context or an approach to the cards that suggests that you're able to save your relationship from this interfering person, and it works well, and it aligns with everything we said so far. The idea that this person is released, that aligns with the suggestion as well. So the fish, snake, and rider is probably something going on behind the scenes, someone who is dishonest, probably someone who is trying to interfere in your relationship. It is also possible that she has or they have. The fish and snake is kind of sexual when it comes to relationships. They both have this side of them when it comes to relationships specifically. And interestingly enough, the rider also is good with relationships because it can represent a knight in shining armor type of character, but it is also a card that many authors choose when it comes to same-sex or gay relationships. So that could be an element at play in your connection depending on your specifics. But in general, I feel this is a challenging line, also because a T crosses the central row where we also have the mouse, and where we saw there are challenges. So this column can mean that there is something going on behind the scenes. This can be a threat to your relationship, or perhaps this is something that you need to know because you need that information to take that action. So let's be cautious about what's going on here, what's going on behind the scenes. The bird, mouse, and mountain is also challenging. The mouse is by itself challenging. It's not very tough in this sense. It's definitely not like the whip. It's lighter than other challenging cards. It points to little things going on here and there, the little things that go wrong. But the thing about the mouse is that if you leave it unchecked, then it can grow into a much bigger deal than it needs to be. So the mouse often warns us to keep things under control before they get out of control. With the bird here, the bird is more or less neutral, but it can be a bit of a tension-causing card. It tends to be associated with, the gossipy type of person, someone who is, causes anxiety around them and things like that. And with the mouse, this can be a tough conversation that needs to happen. And what's interesting is the mountain at the end. The mountain in a challenging context points to blockages. And so it's possible that so far you haven't been able to vocalize your concerns, or maybe the other person hasn't been able to. It's possible that communication has been blocked. And so this column here suggests that it's time to get over this blockage and to speak out. Even if it's a bit challenging, even if there are speed bumps in the process, it seems that the bird, also, as we saw in the top line and as part of the first three cards, encourages you to open up about this. So try to get over the blockage and see if you're able to tackle this. The house, woman, and child is clearly a new relationship. But also it can point to family, because a person card with the child can point to parents or someone with children. And on top of that, we have the house, which is the card of family, home and family. So this column can point to the idea of family. Maybe this is something you're after. If you are after a family, I'm not so sure it's the right time for it to materialize, mainly because of what happens after. So the column here, which is the most salient combination in the tableau, especially since we're asking about relationships. That's a possibility. But the house, woman, and child can also represent a new relationship. So you could meet someone possibly in a smaller context, in a more intimate environment. It's possible that you meet this woman. As we said, the woman can represent you. So the line can also mean that you're in for a new beginning. And this works well with everything else that we're reading in the tableau, and with the idea that you need to make changes and release yourself from certain limitations so that you can pursue your ambitions. We did read this column. We've referred to it a few times because it seems to carry the most, the most salient combination. So again, this is about a major separation. And again, I think this has to do with a specific person, but maybe for some of you, you're thinking of a few people or a certain group that you need to release yourself from. I would like to add that the bear demands courage. So the bear is really about stepping up to the bigger side of who you are, embracing your sense of power, and having confidence in yourself. And remember what we saw right at the outset here. You've got what it takes to make the changes. Embrace your good, prioritize yourself over the next phase. So that's that for the bear. Now the tree, stork, and fox is a nice combination. The fox is a little bit off, but the tree and stork is really good for growth, the idea of a promotion or, that next level of growth. And because of the fox, again, it can point to the job, but it can point to other areas of your life. And actually what's interesting is that the fox is really good with families. So if you need to remove someone in your life, so you can focus more on your family. I'm not sure how your family structure might be. Maybe you are separated from a previous marriage and you want to focus on your kids, and you had been in a relationship that sort of didn't really work with your situation. Any number of scenarios are possible, really. And if you want clarification, you can always leave me a comment and we can refine our interpretation of the cards for your specific context. But in general, the tree and stork is very much about that sense of growth, and there is a sense of relief that comes with it. So it's like you're shedding, and you're able to move beyond the present. The fox is tricky. Again, it is a deceptive kind of card, but the line can be taken in a number of ways. So for one, you could release yourself from this tricky character. And in another sense, you could be focusing on yourself. So the fox always advises us to prioritize ourselves. That's because it's a little bit of a selfish card. But on the better interpretation, or the good side of the fox, the idea becomes more about self-interest, enlightened self-interest. And so this is what this column could be asking you to focus on. And then we wrap up the columns with the heart, lily, and book. This is a beautiful combination for knowledge and growth. You could be studying something, or you could be going into a new career. But the lily is also about life and life paths in a general way. So this is really about living the life that you want to live. And the book brings up mysteries, like we said. So maybe you're pursuing a certain area or a phase in your life where you don't have all of the details. But I think you're feeling it because of the heart. You're feeling that this is right for you. This is what you want to do. And you're going to figure out the details as things unfold, keeping in mind the advice of this bottom line here, just doing your work, doing your homework, researching, delving into, I think, yourself and into your life. So I think in general so far, and we're going to read a few more things out of your tableau, but I'm really getting a sense that a relationship has been limiting for you. And it's time for you to release yourself from the relationship in a very straightforward way, or otherwise make some deep changes in it so that you can feel liberated to pursue your ambitions and the things that are meaningful to you. This can be a bit of a life change. We do have the lily in the cards and this radical combination here. But this is what you want, and this is what's needed for you. So you're going to embrace your good and do what you need to do to put yourself on that path. So that can be really exciting. But again, it might demand a bit of courage on your part. Okay, let's look into some diagonals here. So with a tableau like this one, we can draw a whole sequence of them. So we start, for example, with the top card here. We've got the anchor, snake, and mountain. I'm seeing here really focusing on getting around an obstacle. When I see the snake and mountain, it's very much about going around something. And we've got the mountain, woman, and ring. Again, there is this idea or possibility of this third party interfering in your relationship. And then the ring, stork, and book, which is an important revelation here about the relationship. So in the context of you leaving, you separating, this set of diagonals here is about how you're going to navigate the situation. The snake in this sense is cautious, it's calm, it also looks for alternative solutions, but there comes a point where you're just going to open up about this and you're going to release yourself from the relationship. In the context of someone interfering in your relationship, I think this is a set of diagonals that tells us that you are going to find that out. You are going to figure out what's going on, and it's going to be, the cat is going to get out of the bag, as we say. So that too is pretty good and pretty relieving. Now, starting with this one here, we have the clover, snake, and bird into woman, bear, and stork, and heart. I'm seeing similar indications here. The clover is really reassuring in the face of the snake and bird. Again, the snake figures in this diagonal set. It can point to this third party interfering in your relationship. But the snake and bird can also suggest the idea of waiting a little bit, waiting for the right time, and also being diplomatic and calm and cautious as you go about making that change. And then we've got the woman, bear, and then stork and heart. So the bear, stork, a bit like the ring, stork, and book in here, is about that release, that change, and this idea of a liberation that you can move through in order to release yourself from what seems to be a limiting situation in the context of relationships. And the heart and stork are lovely. They can bring about a new relationship or a sense of feeling relieved in an emotional sense. So that is a lovely set of cards. Now, more diagonals that we can look at are the smaller ones. We have the key and rider, for example. The key and rider is great for new goals. It is followed by the mouse and house, and then the scythe and fox and lily. This can really bring up the idea of the job because of the fox and lily. And backing up, we have the mouse, house, scythe into the fox. So a strong sense of separation here, a strong sense of release. And again, we kick off the line with the key. So it's like what we saw in this column here, the idea that you do know that you need to make this change and you do have what it takes to implement this change. Something has been a drag because of the rider and mouse, and you're now ready for a change. It can be on the job, it doesn't have to be. It can be releasing yourself from this tricky relationship and just really focusing on your goals and the kind of work and career or any other things in your life that affect your life in a deep sense. Whatever it is, you want to pursue it now, so you have to release yourself from the present context. You could be changing jobs. This relationship that you're focusing on can be about your connection with a job or a partnership or something like that, and you want to change away from it because you want to pursue something different in life. That too is totally possible. And we can read the other diagonal in a similar format. We have the key, fish, into mouse, child, scythe, tree, and lily. Again, a very powerful indication of change. And here we have the scythe and tree, which is about being uprooted. So you're uprooting yourself. You're making deep changes. You're going into the roots. And then we have the lily following the tree. So I feel, again, it is about your life chapters. It is a bigger change. This is not just a day-to-day thing that you're adjusting. Backing up here, we have the key and fish, which is great for money, but I also think in a broader sense, it points to your sense of resourcefulness, your sense of ambitions, and that's why you are making the change. Into the mouse and child and scythe here. So again, this idea that something has been a drag. We have the mouse in both diagonals. And the need to release. The child and scythe and tree, very clear combination of something new. The need to let go in order to pursue something new. Now notice that in the tableau of nines, or the mini tableau of nines, we have several portraits that are complete within it. And so what happens is that the central line here, which is boxed by the outer frame, takes on key meanings. It can be that central thing that is happening along with the central column. We have the snake, mouse, and then woman, scythe, and stork. So if we just look at this set of cards here, this small set of 5 cards, it is very clearly telling us that this is about change and release. So this delivers a key message for you, which we've read several times through the different lines. We have a portrait around the snake and a portrait around the mouse. These are challenging. I would say looking at the portrait around your snake, it's important to be calm and calculated, and I think you want to make this change carefully. It's really about focusing on the decision, but again, you have what it takes, and it's important to focus on yourself and on your goals. The portrait around the mouse, I feel, is focused on this conversation, mainly because of the bird, also the fish. The idea that it's a bit tricky to broach the topic, to bring it out, to actually deal with it out in the open. The portrait around the woman is very much about this person who can be yourself as well. And this is, again, it brings up this idea of a conversation because the bird is the first card of this portrait, and it is also a portrait that carries this very important column. So here we start seeing the action that is being taken around the relationship, and then the portrait around the scythe continues on this and clearly brings about these changes. So the scythe is, the card of the separation. We see here in these diagonals that you are making that break, that change on top of this very important column and what we saw in this row as part of the longer line. So very important thing happening here, and there seems to be a gradual unfolding from the left to the right. And then finally we have the stork, which is lovely to see as the last card of the last portrait because it is the card of liberation. So we see this unfolding where you're sort of not really doing anything about it. You're really cautious, you're thinking about it, and then you start to deal with the idea of bringing it out into the open, and then you could confront the person or actually do something about it. It builds up to the final release, and then after that there is that relief that comes through the change. So a very logical and I would say an expected kind of unfolding that is happening through the cards here. So overall, Lapis, clearly you have the challenging tableau. Challenging in the sense that it requires a separation or at least a deep change in the relationship, but I can't judge it for you. Maybe it's actually something that's going to make you really happy. Certainly in the cards, we do see a sense of relief. It seems to me, Lapis group, that relationships are not so much the focus for you right now. And instead, it's more about you pursuing some ambitions. I think you want to explore yourself, your options, changing your life a little bit, going after some adventures. I think this is what the focus is for you. And so this relationship seems to have been in the way to some extent, and I think you're coming to grips with that and you're getting ready to do something about it. So a bit of a bottleneck for you, Lapis, until you're on the other side of this. And once you are, you're in for a new adventure, a bit of mystery, pursuing some interesting things, whatever they may be. I certainly hope you're going to let me know about what these things are. So let me know how you like these ideas, Lapis. Again, circle back with any questions, or if you have a specific context and you're like, well, can this card mean this or that? Leave me comments. I always answer them, or I eventually get to answering them. And so I'm looking forward to them. So thank you so much for tuning in. Until we meet again, take very good care of yourself. Hello, Opalite group. Here we are with your lovely stone and the deck. And my deck is always shuffled between readings. So I'm just going to shuffle it a little bit, and then I'm going to deal out your tableau, your mini tableau of nines. So let's go ahead and do that right away to see what is going on in your connection. Okay, Opalite group, here we are with your cards, and the first card that jumps to me is the man on the right hand side column of your tableau. And it's with the star, so this is a wish fulfillment combination. So we're definitely looking at a relationship that works out successfully. The other card that immediately comes through is the child right in the center of your whole tableau. The child is the card of new beginnings. So we are definitely looking at a new prospect here. But it's also possible that this is a renewal of an existing relationship. And I say that because we have the flowers next to the child. And the flowers tends to be associated not with something that is totally new, but it has to do with the idea of renewal. It's associated with things coming back. When someone or something has been away or it has been on hold somehow, the flower suggests that it comes back into play. So that is a possibility. And also I like to look at the corner cards as a way to get a feel for the tableau as a whole before delving into the details. The house and star is lovely for home life, family life. It's also great for intimate relationships, privacy, intimacy. Because the house is everything indoors and private, it tends to be associated with closer relationships. And in the context of a specific relationship or in love, then it's really supportive. It's certainly encouraging for spending times with this person indoors or in some, smaller places, and of course, intimate moments. It's also a good combination for family and home life in a broader sense or in a more general sense. The idea that you're feeling good in your space at home, and also that this is a space out of which you can nurture your relationships. The second pair of corner cards is the mouse and tree. And this too is a positive combination because the tree easily overcomes the mouse. The mouse is a bit challenging, but it's not overly challenging. It's associated with little things here and there that go wrong, that get in the way, the little annoying details that, that sort of slows us down or creates speed bumps on our path. The thing about the mouse is that if you leave it unchecked, it can grow into something much bigger. So the mouse helps warn you against leaving things unchecked. And with the tree here, you can look forward to recovering any challenges represented by the mouse. I feel that there's going to be a situation of doubt that needs to be resolved, and I see this through this portrait here and the cards on the left-hand side of your tableau. And then we see that there's an unfolding into some kind of positive realization and fulfillment in the last column here. Now, the first three cards of your tableau are always good to set the stage for the rest of the energy of the tableau. The house and key is often associated with buying property or doing something with the home, maybe renting something new, buying, selling, and these kinds of transactions around the home. And with the clover, it is looking really, really positive. But of course, in the context of a relationship, this is going to take on a slightly different meaning. Again, the idea of spending time at home and having intimate moments is very much coming through. But the triplet can also suggest that you unlock potential, or that you open up an opportunity, or that you gain access into a certain space. Of course, this can be physical, but it seems to be also metaphorical. More likely it's metaphorical in the context of a relationship. Intimacy is possible, and these three cards in general are very supportive of relationships and of getting the green light to do something in your relationships, which we're going to see, the details of which we're going to see across the different lines and combinations in this tableau. So let's go ahead and delve into the details now, starting with the longer lines. It's my personal preference. Let's start with the top line. We have the house, key, and clover, and then the bear, mountain, garden, and tree. So there's quite a few place cards coming through. We have the house, the mountain, and garden. So it can indeed refer to a physical location. And the thing about the mountain is that it can represent a place abroad. On top of that, we have the bear next to the mountain. And to me, this is a specific combination that suggests someone who is based abroad. And the tree and the garden and tree is about having some kind of peaceful space out of which you grow. It can be a certain location where you like to kick back and rest. So when we take this line as a whole, it's possible that you have an opportunity to move abroad or to create some kind of foothold abroad. Maybe you buy property abroad, or maybe you're involved with having a space or setting up something abroad. And I would think if that's the case, then that's where you end up meeting a person or meeting this special person here. So this is a very clear and very likely possibility from reading these cards. Now, if you're not seeing this possibility or the idea of a move, it's possible that this person is based abroad and there is some kind of opportunity to meet him. We're just going to go with the him because it's the man. But as you know from my significator video, it can be either. It depends. You may be the man or the other person is the man, or it doesn't matter. So that's also a possibility. And if again, the idea of the foreign element or this element abroad doesn't figure, what we are seeing through this line is clearly the idea of overcoming obstacles and blockages. And that's mainly because of the mountain. When the mountain takes on its challenging side, it can point to obstacles and blockages. But because of the lovely key and clover and the strength that comes through the bear, you overcome this and you're able to move on to the peaceful indications that are coming through the garden and tree. Now, what's also interesting is that the garden is the card of community, society, the idea of socializing, networking, and meeting people. And what I'm seeing from starting off the line with the house is that I wonder if maybe you'd been keeping to yourself a little bit, staying indoors, just being private. And what we see through the rest of the line is this idea of opening up to meeting new people, being with others, going out, going places, overcoming that sense of stuckness maybe, or that sense of being indoors, inside, and coming out, going out, and being with others. The thing about the tree is that it's really calm and easy, so you don't have to take this too seriously. You can just make it casual and light, and just go out and enjoy people and places, going to events and doing things like that. The garden and tree is also about nature, and the mountain can also add to that. The idea of being outdoors and refreshing your environment in this sense. So any way you look at these lines, there is this idea of opening up and of exploring, going beyond the current boundaries, whether it is literally physical or if it's about you getting out of your private space into a more public kind of environment so you can meet people. In the second row, we see that you do meet someone. So we've got the child and the man in the second half of the line, and by themselves, these cards pretty clearly tell us what's going on. At the outset, there is a bit of a challenge here. The snake can be tricky, and I think the tricky side of the snake is going to come through because we also have a few other challenging cards in the tableau and close to the snake. But I have to say that the snake and fish in the context of relationships has a strong sexual indication or implication. And on top of that, we've got the flowers. So I really feel there could be some flirting here, a strong physical attraction, a lot of chemistry going on. It's possible also that maybe you fool around a bit and do things like that. And it could be what sets off the relationship. It's going to depend on your specifics. But I still want to caution a little bit about the snake because it tends to be pretty tricky, especially in the context of relationships. So in this sense, the snake can caution you against investing yourself too quickly. It's really good with being silent and diplomatic. So it could be advising you to take your time as you get to know someone, to really feel it out, and to go after what makes sense for you. On the other side of the line, we have the clear indication of a new beginning. We have the child right in the middle of the whole tableau. This is the card of beginnings. And then we have the cross, moon, and man. So the moon and man is probably attraction again, but the moon is also about invitations, proposals, and things like that. So it probably means that you're going to date someone or go out places, and it ties in nicely with the top row. The cross here can suggest that this is something pretty important. The cross is associated with the bigger things in life, the deeper things in life, life lessons and matters of destiny and all of that. So this might be an important experience for you, and this could be someone who's meant to be, at least for the coming phase. So keep your eyes out for the signs. Make sure you check in with yourself always, because this can be an important thing for you. And again, I would say be open to new relationships, like we saw with the garden. But this doesn't mean that you rush into them. right? The snake is cautious and reserved in that sense. So just make sure that it aligns with what you're after. Now the bottom row has quite a few challenging cards. Let's see how we make sense of them. We have the mouse, bird, clouds and letter, and then whip. I'm seeing communication issues here. We have both the bird and the letter. Both of them are communication cards. So when they come out together, it's very clearly about, contact and communication. And then we have challenging cards, the mouse, clouds, and whip. So there can be some awkwardness here, and also maybe some misunderstanding that pops up maybe at the beginning or somewhere during the unfolding. But what's really nice is the tower and star, especially in the later parts of the line. So the challenges that are indicated through the first part here are going to be resolved, and they're going to be forgiven. That's what's so nice about the star being one of those all-around healing cards. The tower can point to the past, and so it can mean that you overcome this past issue or this situation that pops up. But the tower can also bring up the idea of time. So it is possible that it takes a bit of time for things to be patched up and for that sense of healing to materialize. It's possible that these challenges are tied a little bit with what we're seeing with the snake. Maybe there's a mishap somewhere that causes the misunderstanding. But again, it will be resolved. Now, another way to look at this line is mainly driven by the tower, the idea of the past. Maybe this person or yourself or both of you are still dealing with either a past relationship or a past issue that could possibly get in the way a little bit of the relationship. But the idea here is that it needs to be healed in order to move forward on a more solid footing for the relationship. What I think is great news is that it will be. The star is on the far right of the line along this beautiful column here. So I'm pretty sure that despite the challenges, whether they're in the past or they're ahead for you in this relationship, you can look forward to overcoming them and really putting them behind you. So far, some beautiful messages for you, Opalite group. A new relationship is coming in, possibly the renewal in a relationship, but I feel that it's more about someone new because of the top row, the idea that you want to go out and mix and mingle. So in the process, you meet this person. Okay, let's move on to the columns now and see how they build up into the picture. We have the house, snake, and mouse. This is obviously a tricky combination. The snake and mouse can point to something like a snake bite, something hurtful, someone dishonest. And the thing about the house is that it's possible that this is someone that you had been close with for some time. And so I feel that this could have been a serious disappointment, either for you or the other person, or who knows, maybe both of you. And maybe this is what needs to be overcome and released in order to ring in this new relationship. The snake, fish, and bird is a bit more of a practical combination here, mainly because of the fish being associated with money and prosperity. And on top of that, the bird with the fish can point to things like transactions and administration, maybe some errands around financial matters. With the key, these work out really well. And more broadly, the idea of prosperity and money coming in could be coming through this column here. Now, how this plugs into the relationship can come through in any number of ways. Maybe some of your challenges were financial and you felt maybe that it affects your self-image and things like that. It's also possible that the fish is more of the, it takes on its sexual element a bit more, as we suggested in the second row, and this can come through in the relationship. Again, a bit like the fish and snake and flowers here, we have the key, fish, and bird. The bird is expressive, so there could be these attraction kind of moves happening here, and it can be really exciting, quite an exciting unfolding for the relationship. So this can take on a few different interpretations depending on what you think works best for you. The clover, flowers, and clouds is a very positive combination. The clouds is a card of doubt and tension, but the clover and flowers easily overcome it. And in fact, the clouds and clover is another one of those specific combinations for me that suggests getting negative thinking out of your mind. And with the flowers, this is emphasized because the flowers is one of those really positive and optimistic cards. So it's probable that you're going to have doubts, and maybe this pours into the challenge, the miscommunication that we saw here. The clover and flowers tells us that you will be able to overcome the challenges and also overcome your doubts about this relationship. The idea of a doubt, like I suggested earlier, really comes through the portrait on the left-hand side. It's really nice to see the clover flowers on the rightmost part of the portrait here, because it tells us that you'll figure it out and move past the doubts or the issues that could come up. The bear, child, and letter is wonderful for something new. The bear in this sense suggests an important new beginning, and this is a bit like the cross, that pointed to this idea of matters of destiny. So this can be an important relationship for you. The letter here can mean any number of things. It can be the communication, possibly the one that gets you into a bit of trouble or gets you too in a bit of trouble. But it can refer to other things as well, like the invitation that comes through the moon here, through its idea of a proposal. So clearly an important new beginning for you in relationships. Now, the mountain, cross, and whip is a challenging set of cards. The whip is mainly what brings this out. It is the most challenging card of the deck. And with the cross here, I usually take it to suggest pain and some suffering. And the mountain here also adds to that sense of burden and blockage. So it seems that there's going to be something pretty serious to overcome in the unfolding of this relationship. I wonder, because of the tower, and cross, there is this sense of something important that happened in your life. Maybe it was a past painful episode, a deeper issue that could come through to the surface for you to resolve in order to manifest your relationship. It can be something spiritual like that. And what's interesting is that I also take the key to represent spiritual matters in Lenormand, sometimes also the clover, but not to the same deep extent as the cross. So we have the key, cross, and tower, and these are the three mystery cards of the deck, and they're all figuring in your tableau, along with a challenging episode here. So Opalite group, take this as a sign to go inside yourself to understand what could have happened or what pattern could be at play here that might be preventing you from manifesting your relationship. The wonderful news is that you do resolve it, because we have the star on the other side of all this. So a beautiful set of cards here coming through. The garden, moon, and tower very clearly points to an invitation. The garden and moon is about honors, invitations, appreciation, probably also popularity. And the tower in this sense can be a number of things. It can mean that this happens over time, or that over time there is like the connection forms, or it materializes, it crystallizes over time. The tower can also refer to a place from the past. So again, tying into that past episode, that too is possible. I would say with the tower and moon, take it easy, allow things to unfold. This ties into what we saw with the snake, and you're gonna be fine. The tree, man, and star is a beautiful triplet. It is so nice to see it on the right hand side of the tableau, and that's really the reason why I said it's gonna be fine, because it will be. The star is all about healing, wish fulfillment. It has spiritual energies as well as the tree. And so with the man here, I really think that this relationship does well. It seems to be the right one, at least for the coming phase. And it unfolds, it grows on its own time. There is a slower energy across the tableau, which is totally fine. The tree, tower, the cross, the mountain, the snake, the house at the outside, they're all kind of slower cards. So is the bear. So they're very much indications that you can take your time getting to know this person, and in time you will see that it forms probably a strong bond and that it's meant to be, at least for a while. So a new relationship is in the cards for you, Opalite group. Now let's get more details out of this beautiful spread, the mini tableau of nines, through diagonals. We've got the mouse, fish, and clover into child, whip, into moon and tree. This is interesting. It tells me that I'm really focused on the role of the whip in here because it comes after the child and it's followed by the moon and tree. So I feel that the relationship is off on a rocky start. And this sort of confirms also what we saw in the bottom row, that there's a miscommunication or something. But it's really nice to see the moon and tree after it because it is another confirmation of the healing, just like we saw the tower and star after the whip. And it's also nice to see the clover in this diagonal set because it tells us to, not to worry too much about this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything about it or, just sort of, like not care. But it's, having faith that it can be resolved. And we see that it does get resolved. The mouse and fish could be that initial doubt, possibly builds up into, that mini explosion, shall we say, this mini problem that comes up, but then you overcome that. So yeah, the doubt issue has quite a position in the story. It seems that when you first start out, whether it's you or the other person or both of you, it's not, you have doubts about whether this is going to work out or not. And then it blows up into something and then it blows over and it's released and relieved. So that is an interesting way for the story to unfold. The other set of diagonals is the house, fish, clouds into the child and mountain and moon and star. This is nice. It's really the child and mountain that stands out to me. The child and mountain is one of those specific combinations. To me, it means an important new chapter, but whose importance you cannot yet see. So this is another key for me that tells me that this relationship is meant to be. It's something a bit bigger, a bit deeper. We also saw that through the cross and the tower and the key, like I was saying, these spiritual cards that are coming through. And then the moon and star are beautiful. I mean, this is another wish fulfillment combination. In addition to the star, we have the lovely moon. So on this side of the diagonal, we have a clear indication that it works out. Earlier, we have the clouds. This is not as strong as what we saw in the first diagonal set in terms of the challenges, but again, the clouds is about doubt and tension. It's very psychological in its character, and it points to the idea of, thinking and having doubts and wondering if this is right. The house and fish would normally be a combination related to real estate or rent or work and business, just like we suggested with the key. But again, in the context of this relationship and this query here that we're after, it can bring out the idea of intimacy because the fish can have that sexual nature, and with the house, like we saw, it is about privacy and intimacy. So maybe there is an episode at first that's a bit more on the physical side of the relationship that causes a bit of a tension, but then I think, like we said again and again, it's resolved and you're able to move past it. Another set of diagonal that we look at starts here, the snake, bird into flowers, bear, cross, tower into the man. This is largely positive. It's just the bird next to the snake here that brings out the doubt and the issue that seems to be happening at first, but then you see how it is overcome. Certainly the flowers helps us overcome this. The bear is really strong and powerful, and the cross and tower together. I'm seeing this sense of destiny here. This is a deeper matter, and it goes into the man. So I think this is going to be meant to be, Opalite group. You're just going to have to work through a few issues that pop up at first, and you know what? I think they're going to be important for you to understand what this is about. So be patient with it, and like we said, this is a slower energy that we're picking up in the tableau. There is no need to rush the relationship. And the other set is snake, key into flowers, letter, cross, garden, and man, this is lovely. So here I am seeing the invitation, the key flowers letter into cross and garden. This is the date or the meeting, or maybe several of them, with the man. The thing about the snake here is, I wonder, Opalite group, if you should wait to get that invitation. So don't pursue them, let them pursue you, is my intuition coming through these cards. And it does come through. It does come through. You see that invitation into the date. It's nice. It's lovely. So in addition to these diagonals, I like to also look at what kind of portraits we have in the tableau. And as you can see, we have several complete portraits. We have the one around the fish, the one around the flowers, the one around the child, cross, and moon. And so what that does is it highlights this inner line, which is inside the outer frame of the mini tableau of nines. So this is a pretty important line, and we have in it the beginning. Fish and flowers is lovely for physical attraction, chemistry, a lot of, like a positive interaction here, I would say on an energetic level. And then the child is this new beginning that is meant to be, with the beautiful cross and moon. So very powerful line here that has all of the central cards of the portraits in this tableau. The portrait around the fish is the tricky one. So I feel there is this physical thing that could happen that could maybe rock the boat of the relationship. Maybe this can be any number of scenarios, really. I'm thinking one that comes to mind is maybe you prematurely do stuff together and you maybe backtrack on this a little bit, but then from there you're able to resolve it. It's also possible that it's not physical at all, that it's more about, the doubts or the situation here. Maybe there's financial insecurity that somehow figures in your relationship, or it's an issue or a barrier on some level. All of these are possible. It's really nice to see the flowers after that, because the flowers is a healing card, and we start to see the picture unfolding here. We have the clover key around it, very positive. We have this bottom row as part of it, so we're seeing that there is the ability to start expressing and vocalizing the issues to bring them out into the open. In the central mini portrait, of course, this is the one with the child. In the middle here, we're seeing the importance of this new beginning, but we're also seeing the whip, and it's going to be part of the remaining portraits as well. So it is very much about overcoming the issue that comes up here. So, just like we saw that this is the communication piece, an important communication piece figures for you, Opalite group. And here it sort of boils over a little bit, but the clover tops the portrait, and so it is a good idea to bring this up. It's important to confirm these doubts, resolve them in any number of ways that works for you and this person. And then we have the portrait around the cross. This is this deep sense here, very heavy, has that sense of destiny, important matters. The whip, again, like we read in this column, heavy here, a bit of a challenge, a bottleneck that comes through into the portrait around the moon that wraps up with the star. It is awesome that the star is the bottom right card. If you've watched my portrait tutorial, I explained how I read, this diagonal and these two lines that pour into the star, the bottom right card. And so I feel it's a pretty important card. And this is a healing and wish fulfillment card. So it's really nice to see it in this right-hand side column as part of the last portrait. And we see that in this portrait, the challenges are behind you, because the left column in a portrait tends to be associated with the past or the earlier stages, and then they unfold into this healing. And the moon is all about invitations and honors. It's also good with chemistry and relationships. So we are seeing a positive resolution. So overall, Opalite group, I think this tableau is telling us that you're in for a new relationship. There are a few tricky steps that you go through in it before they're resolved and before you can move forward in the relationship with ease. I do think this is meant to be. So see if you can be patient as you work through the challenges, and also keep checking in with yourself. It's very important that you feel it out. Maybe you go through some different people before you find the right person. It's possible through, this phase of networking and getting out. Try to communicate effectively, be honest, be willing to deal with the issues. Don't try to hide from them. There's no need. And also work on yourself and your healing. So if you have patterns that are coming through, or maybe this exploration of new relationships is bringing up something from the past or something else or a certain pattern, it's really an opportunity to work through these. I know it's amazing to do things in life, to get great jobs, to make good money, to be in great relationships, but the soul journey is also really exciting. And so try not to miss a chance for when life is sending you signals through the outside, that you use them as a segue into what's going on within you. If you're not going to deal with them now, when are you going to deal with them? And keep in mind that the more you postpone this work, the more you postpone your good in the outer world. So keep this in mind as you work through, this wonderful life journey and the wonderful things that are happening in it. So these are my thoughts for you, Opalite group. Very best of luck with this new beginning. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts about it. Be sure to leave me some comments. And if you want us to relook at the cards, or you're wondering what they could mean for your specific context, then by all means leave me your questions and I'll be happy to answer them. So thank you again for tuning in. I am so looking forward to our next reading together. And until then, take very good care of yourself. Welcome, Brandberg group. Here we are with your lovely stone and the deck. I always shuffle my deck between readings, so I'm ready to just shuffle a little bit to seal the intention like I normally do, and then just deal out your cards into a mini tableau of 9s. And remember, we are focusing on a connection of yours. It can be a love relationship. It doesn't have to be. My main sort of energy around me is focused on love, but the cards are always flexible, and so we're keeping this pretty open to see what is going on in this connection with quite a bit of detail because we have a mini tableau here. So let's go ahead and deal out those cards. Okay, Brandberg group, this is going to be a more or less challenging situation. I'm really looking at this portrait here on the right hand side of your tableau, and very clearly this column here at the far right of your tableau. As you know, I tend to read from left to right, or the cards tend to play out from left to right. So the future-most, or possibly the outcome kind of cards, they tend to be concentrated on the right hand side of a layout. Of course it depends, but that's typically how I read. And of course the whole tableau comes into play. Now, I like to first contextualize a little bit the tableau before getting into the details, and I like to do this by focusing on some key cards. When we look at the central card, we see the bear. The bear is a card of strength and courage and power, and it is very much about stepping up to your sense of power to gain empowerment. So right from the get-go, when I see the bear in the center of this whole tableau, and in contrast with cards like these, what I suggested were ending cards, the idea of letting go, I have to wonder, Brandberg group, if this isn't coming from you. Maybe you're the one who needs to make a change, make a break, release yourself from a certain relationship because of any number of reasons that we're going to dig out through reading the details. So that is the first impression that I get from this tableau. Now let's look at the corner cards. The book and fox is a secret, something hidden, something is being kept from you. It's also possible that you're the one who's keeping this from someone. So this secret might be what is revealed through this process in the coming phase for you. The dog and stork is quite interesting. It is a combination that highlights friendships, because the dog is the card of friendships. Typically, when I see the dog in the context of a love reading, I tend to feel that the relationship is better off as a friendship as opposed to a love relationship. And that is possibly the case here. The stork with the dog can be the idea of a relief. In contrast with the book and fox, this thing that was hidden can come through the surface. And Maybe it's not easy to talk through this or bring it up, but it seems to be important for the evolution of the relationship. And maybe the relationship doesn't end. Maybe this is about talking through something that helps you move through a certain bottleneck in the relationship. We're going to build these layers as we go through. I also like to look at the first three cards of a tableau. These are really interesting. We have the ship and mountain, and both of them are travel cards. So maybe you're in for a trip, except the book being the card of mysteries and things unknown. Maybe at this stage you're not aware that there is an opportunity. Because these two cards are so close together and there's so much about this area, I feel that a trip is possible. But if you're not seeing this at all possible for you, then the ship and mountain here in the context of the book can most likely indicate something stuck. And there is a very strong idea of getting unstuck in this tableau, especially through this portrait here that we're seeing on the right hand side. You know, the stork, this strong combination here, the snake and fox in the context of the stork. There can be a lot of release energies that are at play for you in the coming phase within this relationship and this connection. So let's now get into more details and start reading the lines and the many cards across these lines, starting with the top row. So we have the book, ship, and mountain, like we said. We have the tree in the middle and the very powerful coffin, scythe, and stork. Now, the coffin scythe is often taken to mean the death combination. I don't think it's enough for indicating a death, as you probably know if you've been on my channel for a while. I need more cards to point this out specifically. And so more generally, the way I read the coffin and scythe is a final ending, a final change. And on top of that, we have the stork on the other side of the scythe. The stork is also a card of change. And so this part here very clearly points to an ending. Earlier in the line, we have this quiet, stuck, you know, this, I don't know, there is this sense of things being closed off, and the coffin also contributes to that. And then bam, you have the scythe and stork right after. So it's like you've been bottling something and then it has to come out. Maybe you're the one who's been bottling up, or the other person, or the whole situation, you know, the energy of the connection has been stuck and now something needs to pop open. So this is definitely what we're seeing through this line. It's also likely that the relationship ends in a very straightforward, obvious way to interpret the cards in the context of a relationship. The thing about the earlier lines is that maybe you were debating this, you were wondering if it's the right thing to do. It could be a bit challenging for you. Maybe you're wondering about what direction it's going to take next. And what's nice about the tree is that it is calm and centered and grounded. So I feel you're going to be able to make this decision out of the right place, out of the right mindset, so that you really stand behind your decision and can move through with flow and momentum once you make that decision. I want to look at the central column because the T crosses the tree. This is the central column. It's pretty key. And with the bear and tree, there is that really strong sense of groundedness, knowing who you are, knowing what you want. And then we have the letter. The letter is about communication. So it's going to be building up to the announcement, the communication, probably the one through which you announce the change, or you make the change, or you create this ending that we see in the cards. Strong sense of self, strong sense of rootedness. I feel you really have a strong mind and a sound mind going for you so that you make the right decisions. So I think if there's going to be challenge, which there are a little bit here, it's really about building up to the resolve that's going to tip you over on the other side of this and going to get you to make that change, express what you want to do, and move forward from there. Now in the second row, we have a few challenging cards. The row is bracketed by the whip and snake, and these are tricky cards. And we also have a few positive ones. We have the bear, flowers, and anchor. The bear and anchor, they're not always positive. The bear more so than the anchor. But because of the flowers, we are seeing again that sense of strength. And really, we have three of the strongest cards in the Lenormand deck, insofar as we're seeing that sense of groundedness and rootedness, really standing strong in your perspective. So the whip, moon, and clouds is very much about challenge. The moon and clouds can mean nervousness, tension. The clouds really brings up the dark side of the moon. And with the whip here, we are looking at this tension that has been building up. And you feel that the incompatibility is a bit deeper than just the relationship. So I think this is about your sense of how you resonate with the relationship, how you tune into it on a deeper level. And I think that is what's being shaken up. So your doubts are starting to come through, they're bubbling up, and you need to do something about them. The bear, flowers, and anchor, especially with the snake, very much confirm what you have in mind. And I think you really have in mind the idea of leaving, changing, moving on. And the thing about the bear, flowers, and anchor is that they really confirm and they really reassure you that you're on the right track. What's interesting about the snake is that you don't have to be aggressive about how you leave. What is aggressive, quote unquote, is your decision, the conviction, the idea of you standing behind your decision. That's what requires the strength. But then when it comes to actually moving away or moving on from the relationship, once you're past the decision and the strength of the decision, it's going to be smooth and easy for you. The snake is also good for helping you focus on your goals, being a bit more self-interested moving forward. And it can sometimes bring up a third party in a relationship. So the snake in relationships is the main card of deception, dishonesty, and a love triangle. Now, just from looking at the cards so far, I don't feel this is the main thing that is coming through for you, but it is possible. So as we continue weaving the lines together, we could come to see the snake as representing that. And in this case, it can change the direction of the tableau in a pretty deep way. But let's keep on building what we're getting through the lines. The dog, tower, cross, and then the letter into the ring, fish, and fox. So the letter in the center here points to communication. And again, this is part of the column that's at the center of the tableau. And so this is what's going to be key here in this line. We also have the dog and fox. This can point to a tricky relationship. We also have the ring. But I have to say that the fish and fox normally points to a job and good income through a job. So if this were about something else, if it weren't about relationships, that would be the main interpretation of the combination. But in the context of this question, which is more focused on a relationship, the ring, fish, and fox can sometimes suggest that the relationship is superficial and that it's more it's just physical, or maybe it's not doing it for you, it's just really superficial and shallow and not really what you're after. At the same time, it is possible that we can interpret this line as suggesting something in relation to your work and your career, even in the context of a love relationship. And that's because sometimes our focus in life can change, and maybe we're best focusing on work. Maybe something we do on the job front affects our relationships. And the thing about the dog tower here at the outset can point to the idea of, being hired by a company. The dog is the card of the employee in the context of work. And we also have the fish and fox that brings this up. So this can be about the job. So from a work perspective, this line is pretty promising. It suggests that you could get a new offer or some kind of new project and engagement, involvement of sorts that first brings in quite a bit of money or better money. And also it might be something you might commit to over a period of time because we have the tower and cross. So in the context of the broader question, the broader focus for this reading, perhaps your work life or your other projects can come into the picture, and for you they seem to be more important over the next phase, and this could somehow pour into the relationship, affect it in one way or another. So far I think we have broad headlines, but I want to bring out more details out of the columns and the diagonals to see where this relationship is going. I think it's going to be pretty clear from this portrait, but let's keep building the layers. So the book, whip, and dog. Yes, I think this is very much aligned with what we're seeing through the corner cards, through this portrait. The book and whip is a surprise or a revelation in relation to this friend of yours, this person that you're focusing on. In general, it is bad news probably, but it can also be just shocking because of the whip. The whip brings in challenges. So I do think that something's going to come up, probably going to catch you by surprise, and it's probably going to cause you to rethink matters. The ship, moon, and tower is a nice combination for travel. It's also good for exploring options. The ship in relationships is not really settled. And with the tower here, you could be wondering where this is going long term. So this could be a key question that comes into the picture for you. Is this something that you want for the long term? Do you think this is something that will work out over the long term? This could be a key question for you. And there is the idea of, if it pours into the bottom row and we take the bottom row to represent the idea of a work involvement or some other project that you could be part of, the ship, moon, and tower can point to that and suggest that you're heading in that direction, that you have an offer to pursue something like that. The mountain, clouds, and cross is, I would take it as a challenging triplet here. The clouds is typically about doubts and tensions, and the cross can bring out the idea of burdens and obligations, and also the feeling of heaviness and possibly difficult choices. And so these two cards clearly bring out the more difficult aspect of the mountain, which is about a blockage. I feel that you're feeling stuck in this. It feels like it's weighing on you. The relationship is a bit heavy. And again, you are wondering if this is going to be, or what the direction looks like for the longer term. We did read the central column here, the tree, bear, and letter, and we suggested that it asks for your strength, your courage, but also it confirms that you've got it and that you are coming from a space of a strong sense of self. I think your decision is going to be sound. You are level-headed. You are able to assess the situation for what it is, and you are basically building up to the point where you make this announcement, where you're able to take a stand on the situation. Now, the coffin, flowers, and ring would normally point to the return of someone after a period of absence, but really because of the lines after it, I think it takes on a different energy. The flowers and ring can suggest a renewal in the relationship, but because of the T-cross with the top row, which is very clearly about an ending, I think we're best interpreting this column as suggesting the idea that you're able to put an end to this phase, and also that you're able to do this with optimism and able to do it coming from a space of kindness and compassion. So I feel that you really bring your communication abilities up to a really high level where you're able to communicate honestly and with compassion. So this can be a really empowering phase and a skill or ability for you. The scythe, anchor, and fish tends to point to the idea of release. So the scythe with the anchor releases the anchor. It sort of releases you from the ball and chain sort of thing. The fish on the other side of the anchor can again pour into what we saw in the bottom row, where you need to let go of the relationship or the connection in order to pursue your ambition, more financial security. I guess overall a sense of empowerment, mainly because of the bear. So I think this is going to take priority for you over the next phase. And finally, we have the stork, snake, and fox, which is pretty clear in its message. Both the snake and fox are very tricky in relationships, and they're also cards of deception, self-interest. They're both of them. They're the two deception cards of the deck. And when we see them together, this idea is coming through even more. And the thing about the stork here is that you are releasing yourself from this, and that you need to turn away. It's also a combination that tells you to focus on yourself, to be self-interested, to focus on your goals. And I think this can be part of feeling more empowered. I'm getting a sense of this idea of being able to say no from this tableau, from these different ways of looking at the cards. Boundaries, more time for yourself, more focus on your own path, on your ambitions, on work and career matters, financial matters are all coming through here. And I think you also discover an aspect of this person that disappoints you, just like we saw in the first column. We see both of these, how they bracket the tableau from the left and right. It seems that something comes up and you think about it, and I don't think you're able to dissolve it away. I think it changes your mind about the relationship. And so what's going to happen is that you're going to decide how you're going to move forward in this relationship, and you are probably going to come to the conclusion that you're best moving away. In the process, there seems to be external factors also, like opportunities, possibly travel, that come your way that help you tip over to that side of the decision. So these are my thoughts for your tableau. Potentially challenging, but I think empowering and possibly even relieving. So there's more we can get out of the tableau. Mainly, I want to look at several sets of diagonals and see what more they tell us. So we have the book, moon, cross that goes into the bear, coffin, anchor, and fox. So this triplet here points to a definite ending. The bear, coffin, and anchor really brings something to a head and to completion. And earlier in the line, it's the decision making, I feel, or possibly these unknown factors that come into play that move you into this decision. And the fox on the other side of the anchor also supports this idea of an ending. But the thing about the fox is that it tones down the approach. So again, I really feel is the decision that you need to be strong about. But then when you move away from the person or you make changes in the relationship, they're not aggressive. They're kind of calm and even diplomatic. So this is probably advice that you might want to use. So see if you can express yourself in a more balanced way, becoming more neutral about it. No need to fight or argue, or be confrontational. There's no need to raise up a conflict. The conflict is more internal. The strength and the decisiveness that we see through the scythe is really something that's happening within you in terms of how you're going to see this and the decision that you're making. And we see here earlier in the tableau that you go through a phase of debating with yourself how you feel about what you discovered about this person and how you're going to deal with it moving forward. The other set of diagonals is the dog, moon, mountain into bear, ring, into anchor, and stork. So this is actually a really lovely set of cards where the dog and moon here brings positivity to the relationship. It can be a different relationship. I don't think it is, but it is the idea that you're able to tone it down and that you don't need to make so much of a big fuss with the person. Again, it's really about what's happening inside of you. The mountain, again, can point to that place abroad, and with the bear, it can suggest having a base abroad, possibly pouring into the top row. You have connections with the ring, anchor, and stork, and you're able to make changes and release yourself from a certain circumstance, to embrace new opportunities. The stork on the other side of the anchor is a bit like the scythe on the other side of the anchor, a bit like the snake on the other side of the anchor. There is this idea of unplugging, of removing yourself from this situation that seems to be a bit more like it's locking you. So it is about releasing the shackles, releasing the stronghold. And we see this through the cards around the anchor. More diagonals we can read are starting with the whip here, the whip into tower, clouds, tree, and then flowers, fish, and snake. So notice that these sets of diagonals are bracketed by the whip and snake. So there's a clear message here of leaving, of moving away. But in between, we have some pretty supportive cards. The tree, flowers, and fish is really good for money and creativity. And so I feel that you're going to be more absorbed into some of your projects as opposed to the relationship. And before that, we have the tower, clouds, and tree that comes right after the whip. So I feel that you're ready to move past these challenges. It's possible that you've been in this relationship for a while and you're now thinking about where it's going, like we said in this column. There are question marks about where you think this is all heading. And in all probability, you feel that it's not really what you want for the longer term. So I think you're going to make a decision around that. And like we said a few times already, there are external factors like opportunities, travel opportunities that come your way that will help you make that decision. We also have the whip, ship, into clouds, letter, into flowers, scythe, and snake. Again, you know, the scythe and snake, this is a pretty powerful combination for parting. And before that, there is that opportunity, you know, that comes through the letter, flowers, and scythe, and possibly related to a trip, although this part of the diagonals can again suggest that unhappy surprise or that shock or that thing that comes out of this person, and you need to do something about it. The letter is about communications, and so here you're thinking about, well, you know, how you're going to move forward. Through this part of the diagonal, it's really the flowers that helps you turn it into a more or less smooth transition away from the relationship. So, you know, you look at this side of the tableau and the cards around the anchor are very clear. We have the coffin, anchor, fox. We have the scythe, anchor, scythe, snake, anchor, snake. And then there's the knights, you know, that there's just not, you know, if we're going to get into all of the knights, we're going to end up with a 2-hour video. But sometimes certain combinations stand out. And the ring knighted to the scythe is the key combination of divorce, not to say anything about the scythe and coffin. And then we have the stork on the other side of all this in this column. So it's really hard not to interpret the cards as not pointing as pointing to an ending. They certainly point to the idea of leaving. And the thing about the anchor in the middle here of this portrait is really being strong in your sense of self, like we saw in the central column, the idea of having conviction in yourself, plus how in different combinations it points to the idea of releasing limitations. So very clearly this is coming through this portrait. Now, speaking of the portrait, we can back up a little bit to the beginning or the left-hand side of the tableau, and we have a few complete portraits. We have the one around the moon, the one around the clouds, the central one around the bear, the flowers, and the anchor. And so what this does is it highlights the central line here that is inside the outer frame of the tableau, and this line tends to be pretty important. We have the moon, clouds, into bear, flowers, and anchor. This is really positive for your sense of self, for your creativity, for growth. Both the moon and flowers are about creativity, and both the bear and anchor are about strength and having a strong foundation. The clouds is probably some doubts that you've been dealing with, And we see that the focus through the central cards here is not on a relationship. It's more on you and your sense of growth, your sense of empowerment. And so I feel that over the next phase, Brandberg group, there isn't really space for a relationship, certainly not this one, in view of the stuff that came out. I think it's really an opportunity to make a change and to go off exploring some of your talents, some projects you can be part of, your creativity in any number of ways, growing in your sense of empowerment. And that can be really exciting. It's just that navigating away from the relationship is what we're working through here in this tableau for this question. Now, looking a little bit at the portraits, the one around the moon, I feel this is where there's the revelation. It's about how you handle it. I think at first you'll be calm and quiet about it. Maybe you won't do anything at all about it. There's this revelation that we said comes through, and then the moon is really soft and gentle. So you're really going to spend time thinking about it at first. And this pours into the portrait around the clouds being a psychological card, the card of thoughts and thinking. And then really it's about how you communicate this. The one around the bear, I think this is where you actually communicated, because the letter is in the central column here, pretty important column. And we saw that you're able to communicate with kindness and compassion. So that is really nice. At first you take it in, you process it, and then you're able to communicate in a kind and compassionate way. So I would take this as advice, Brandberg group, when you are confronted with a new reality about this person, about this connection, don't react immediately, sort of chill. Take it in, process it, think about it, and then you'll see that it will land and form in a way that you're able to communicate your intentions moving forward in a smooth and compassionate way. The cards around the flowers are really positive. I think they focus you on your sense of growth and your potential. And as we saw, the ones around the anchor are the release cards. This is a very powerful portrait, very telling, with so many cards around the anchor suggesting a separation and a movement. So Brandberg group, I can't say that this is easy, but I can say that it's pretty critical. And I do think that you'll handle this really well, provided you give it time to process it and to understand what you're about and what you want to pursue next. It's really important now that you switch around. I think there is a shift here happening. The shift is away from a limiting relationship, or from a relationship that is past its time, into a more empowering position for yourself, one that involves projects and activities and creative outlets that help you grow. So I think that it's important that you're not distracted, limited, held back by relationships, but also really anything else, anything that ties you down in an unhealthy way, in a way that prevents you from moving forward. At this stage, Brandberg group, I think, is going to need to be revisited. I think you want to step up and embrace your creativity. Do not doubt your abilities. Certainly, if this person has been critical of your potential, then we're talking about someone toxic at this point. And so definitely this is someone to work away from. Embrace your potential. Take this as an opportunity to turn the page and to find out more about what your abilities are. So quite powerful tableau for you, Brandberg group. I think I'm good to close at this point. Let me know how you like these ideas. Leave me your thoughts and comments. And don't hesitate to ask me about some questions for your specifics, how I would reinterpret the cards for your specifics. I'm good with that. Leave me your comments and your questions. So until we meet again, thank you so much for watching. Very best of luck with this next phase, and I'm looking forward to our next reading together. So until then, take very good care of yourself.